Good evening and welcome to I-24 News Defense, your weekly review of strategic affairs, security, intelligence and more, brought to you in cooperation with Israel Defense Magazine. Tonight we'll explore some of the recent developments in global terrorism and catch a glimpse at a very unique workplace where the employees come to blow things up. But before that, let's take a look at what else is happening in the world.
We begin with a fight over Egypt between the US and Russia. The United States will lift a suspension on the delivery of 10 Apache aircrafts to Egypt after Cairo has upheld its peace treaty with Israel. The media in Israel cited official sources in Moscow and Cairo reporting Russia intends to sell 24 advanced MiG-35 fighter jets to Egypt in what seems to be yet another battleground between the two powerful countries. We continue to Syria, where new claims say President Bashar al-Assad's regime may have launched attacks with an industrial chemical earlier this month. The latest evidence comes as Syria plans to hold a June 3 presidential poll, which the United Nations and the Syrian opposition have slammed as a farce. We conclude in Nigeria, where Abu Bakr Shekau, the leader of the cruel Islamist group Boko Haram, claimed responsibility for the deadliest attack ever in Nigeria's capital. 75 people died in a bomb blast in a packed bus station in Abuja. Meanwhile, the security forces continue to search for 85 schoolgirls who are still missing after being kidnapped by gunmen from a school in the northeastern Borno state, Boko Haram's base.
American drones and Yemeni counterterrorism forces killed more than 36 militants linked to Al-Qaeda's affiliate in Yemen in one of the largest such attacks there in months. More in this next report here.
The footage, uploaded overnight, took the U.S. by surprise. Dozens of armed Al-Qaeda operatives in Yemen, headed by their leader, Nasser al-Wuheshi, were gathering in broad daylight and making threats against America.
The Crusader enemy, dear brothers, still possesses cards which he moves around. We have to remember, dear brothers, that we are always fighting the biggest enemy, the mother of infidels. We have to remove the cross, the bearer of the cross, America.
U.S. officials were unexcited by the new footage and by the threats emerging online.
It's in no way breaking news that AQAP is a significant threat to the United States, the people of Yemen, to other people in the region and around the world. I mean, since 2009, we've seen them try to attack the homeland with several attempts. And they've clearly carried out a number of attacks inside Yemen.
But in an action described as massive and unprecedented, American drones mounted a large-scale assault on top Al-Qaeda operatives in the country. By Monday night, at least 65 militants had been killed, some of them from neighboring Saudi Arabia.
Joining me now in the studio is Yaakov Lapin, military correspondent for the Jerusalem Post. Good evening.
Good evening.
With everything that is happening in the Middle East, it looks like Al-Qaeda is looking for a stronger hold on ground, right?
Yeah, Al-Qaeda is always looking for a stronger hold, but I would also say that it is on the defensive in places like Yemen while gaining a strategic upper hand in places like Syria. Syria is the place where Al-Qaeda is gaining its most powerful regional foothold, and that's where I think it is most dangerous.
But what are their capabilities at the moment?
At the moment, Al-Qaeda's capabilities are limited to regional, localized terrorist networks that are used to attack regimes that are seen as being affiliated with the infidel West, as we've seen Al-Qaeda leaders say just now. But eventually, they're going to start networking. The more they grow in the region, Syria, the Gaza Strip, Sinai Peninsula, we're going to see them attempt to network and then create these international terrorist networks, and that's when they will become a greater danger both to the Middle East region and to Europe and the West as a whole.
It is kind of a rare situation where Al-Qaeda's leaders are coming out of their underground shells and filming themselves outside on the ground.
It's something that we've seen in the past on occasion when they felt the need to launch public relations campaigns, when they want to recruit more locals, and then when they want to fight back against local Arab governments that are trying to delegitimize them. We've seen them release public relations campaigns on the internet and on video, so it's not that unusual, and it's a sign of their very large desire to recruit more members. This is the way for them to do it, to appear on the media map.
And the first in command on ground, El Wahaishi, also publicly seen?
That is rare, acknowledged that that's rare, but again, he's willing to do that if he's interested in getting more recruits to take on the Yemenite government. That is his way of making his media profile higher.
And we should take seriously the threats?
Always the threats are serious, but I think the United States says rightly that the threat is under control, that it's being monitored. The United States has the option of deploying drone strikes to Yemen. It's been using that option for years on a need-by basis, and it has good cooperation with the Yemenite government. So I think that the threat is contained, but of course it's always possible that it could reach out and strike long distance.
Right. I want to talk to you about Thailand, another failed plan by Hezbollah to attack Israeli tourists in Thailand. 8 years have passed since Imad Munir's assassinations. No real vengeance yet.
Well, we had the Burgas attack of 2012, and that was Hezbollah's first overseas international terrorist attack that, from its perspective, was a success. The problem is that they have not stopped. Every year, dozens of Hezbollah attacks are attempted on Israeli tourists overseas, and the Israeli intelligence agencies, the Mossad, military intelligence, they're all working day and night to stop these attacks. We don't often hear about it, except when they're thwarted successfully on occasion, and then it reaches the headlines. I would say that this is actually more dangerous than it seems, because if Hezbollah does successfully carry out a mass murder of Israelis overseas, then how will Israel respond? It may have to respond here, locally, in the local arena, and that could set off a chain reaction.
Right.
So this is more dangerous than it seems.
Right. Thank you so much, Yaakov Lappin.
My pleasure.
Ending what has been over a decade-long absence, multinational battle group East paratroopers took the skies in Kosovo. The 18-soldier team conducted airborne jumps to maintain jumper proficiency. Here's more.
Fort Hood's own 238 Cav paratroopers conducted an airborne jump training exercise at Camp Bondsteel, Kosovo, to maintain their skills and keep their jump status current. Cavalry troopers performed the task, making it the first airborne jump in over a decade in the Kosovo region. The 238 Cav Reconnaissance Unit jumpmasters loaded the aircraft to take part in a rare training opportunity for soldiers in a non-combat zone.
And this is not necessarily something that we would do here in peace support operations, but because we are a long-range surveillance squadron, we do have to have the ability to do this back at Fort Hood.
The airborne exercise gave the paratroopers a chance to practice the necessary skills that will keep them mission ready.
The biggest thing is just proficiency. It's just like anything else, marksmanship, mobility, driver's training, all that stuff. Soldiers need to maintain the proficiency so, everything stays fresh in their brain, muscle memory.
The long-range surveillance squadron took to the skies for the first airborne jump the region has seen in over a decade.
Explosives are generally used in battlefields and by terrorists, but in northern Israel, a civilian company is examining them in order to find solutions for us all. I-24 News correspondent Tal Shalev has more in this next report.
On April 15, 2013, 2 bombs exploded on Boston Boylston Street, killing 3 people and listing down in history the Boston Marathon bombings. At the site of the explosion, investigators found bits of metals, nails, bearing balls, and the lid of a pressure cooker. One of the suspects admitted in their interrogation that he had learned how to build the devices from a recipe online. 2 days after the bombing, intelligence agencies all around the world already got a precise report on how exactly the bomb worked and created a demo of the bomb. A group of engineers, chemists, and physicists, all situated in the Tamar Explosives Laboratory in northern Israel, research and investigate almost every terrorist action nowadays, analyzing the techniques and procedures of modern, many times homemade, terror. Their mission is many times more like a race.
You have to be more sophisticated and better than a terrorist so you can mitigate and neutralize the effect of their explosives.
Tamar Explosives was established in 1998 by former IDF Special Unit officers and specializes in designing and implementing solutions for all types of activities in which explosives are used, from homeland security through detonation of buildings, demolitions and tunneling, and even fireworks. In the laboratory, the company develops explosive simulants specifically for training purposes that are precise reproduction of various explosive materials and items, such as pipe bombs, suicide bomber belts, and homemade bombs. The accessories are similar to the real items in form, color, and weight, and are used for testing detection machines and sniffer models.
This is a simulant for Semtex. We heard that the Palestinian ambassador to the Czech Republic was killed from this kind of material. So we are producing the same material, but without the energy. It's not an explosive, but you can feel it like the real thing. It's should be detected in all the known systems as an explosives.
The laboratory also goes outdoors once in a while and has a unique firing range in the south of the country to conduct special experiments. With the growing threat of improvised terror and enhancing range of explosive utilities, the Tamar experts are probably only going to get busier.
Joining me now in the studio is Reserves Colonel Atai Shelach, former commander of a Yahalom Special Unit of IDF Combat Engineers Corps. Good evening.
Good evening.
So we saw the explosives on the report, and learning about the explosives that are used by terrorists are important in several ways.
Yes, of course. I would like to remark that companies like Tamar, for example, that we just saw before, are help the market, if I can say, the civilian market and sometimes the secure market and the army to learn and to prepare much better from this kind of aim. Those laboratories help us to research sometime, to learn how to identification and detection the explosive things, and in another way, from the operational aspects, how to prepare the army, the operational forces to deal with such a thing like this. Those companies, one of the unique of them that they are very experts and they learn and learn and learn and they have the time and the tools, and they also make a lot of research that helps them to know much better from the other ways.
So it's basically very important to learn about it, to how to detect it in the known systems that we have, you know, like in airports and official companies first, and then to prevent the second stage.
So as you all know, we know the biggest challenge in the explosive thing is to detect and to identification, the explosives.
Right.
And the terrorists are doing a lot of maneuvers how to hide this and how to bring it into an airplanes, into Boston Marathon and so on.
Right.
And such a company like this helped to learn how.
And the tests they conduct do they resemble the real thing?
Yes. The tests they're doing, they resemble the real thing because they holding an expert that served in the IDF, for example, that know what is the challenge and know what is the aim. So they can simulate the real thing very easy.
And what can you take from them to the battlefield and to the civil life?
First of all, for the civil life, it's very important to understand. Because sometimes when you want to establish a new road or establish a new route for trains, for example, you need to expose rocks. And the exploding of the rocks, sometimes it's very dangerous because the civilians live over there and you have to do it very carefully. So those companies, for example, doing such a thing like this for the civilians. And for the battlefield, for example, and we also have the IDF, they know that search it, but they also input, they have a very unique input for a very specific area, especially for the special units that deal with the laboratory of the terrorism. So that they help sometimes to the army also. and to the battlefields.
And the experts, how often are they surprised from what the terrorists are using?
It's a race. It's a race of research, because the terrorists all the time want to be advanced and to be one step before of us, right, and to surprise us. And the companies and the IDF want to be
ahead
one
of
step,
them.
one
Right.
ahead of. So it's kind of a race.
Atay Shelach, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
That is all we have time for. Be sure to catch us next week for another edition of I-24 News Defense. For all the latest headlines, log on to www.i24news.tv. Have a great night from Jaffa Port.